Clay Henry joining us here, publisher, editor, Hogs Illustrated. That means it's a Wednesday at 11:30. It's like clockwork, Clay. Do these little midweek hits with us reset your clock for the rest of the week, and you kind of depend upon them to let you know what time of the day it is on a Wednesday? It helps me.
Well, what it does is I try to get things done, and so I get up really early on a Wednesday and knock out 4 or 5 things work-related. And so then when I'm finished with you guys, if it's a pretty day, then I may be – because I work a lot of weekends, I kind of have to pick my spots during the week. All right, when's an opening? And so this is my cue to – if you could see me now, I am decked out in my golf stuff, and I'm ready to – so some days I'm decked out in fishing stuff. You know, I do that just before we go on the air, and then it's like my wife knows when I put the Comrex unit up, stay out of my way because I'm going straight out the door, and I'm going to get in my truck, and I'm either going to go to the river or go to the golf course on Wednesday afternoon. Didn't know that, did you?
Nope, I didn't. But now I'm glad to know that this is part of the routine that kind of leads into more of a routine for you on a Wednesday.
Creatures of habit.
We all are. All right, so I want to get into some football stuff here with you for a moment because I know you're probably preparing for big issues coming out in the summer about previewing the upcoming season. And there's a new defensive end that has transferred in, Trey Williams from Missouri, and it feels like there's a remade defensive line. My question is, though, last year the defensive line wasn't very productive, yet still Jonathan Marshall is the only drafted player out of the Arkansas Razorback football team. And he did that on double teams, and it was pretty obvious to see how good he was. Are we going to notice his absence next year, even with a rebuilt defensive line?
So I think it'll be different. I mean, I think you always have change and things. You don't ever just find a guy that just plugs into a spot, so there's not a guy that you just plug into Mike Wood's spot. But there might be a committee of guys. So what you're going to see that's different is the nose tackle's not going to be out there for 80 plays or 60 or 70 or whatever it was that he was. I think there was a game or two where he was out there the whole time. And it might be that that's why he wasn't productive as he was, as far as sacks, the double teams, the triple team. If you're out there for too many plays in a row, it's kind of like a starting pitcher and a relief pitcher. A relief pitcher knows he's got 25 pitches or so, right, Phil? Mm-hmm. And he can come out there and empty the tank. A starting pitcher is like, man, I got to get to inning 5. I've heard, Zeb Vermillion talk about trying to have a relief pitcher's mentality when he starts, like I'm just going to pitch an inning and then I'm going to pitch another inning. Well, that's really not the way it works, though. And that's, but they're going to have guys that rotate at the nose tackle. And, it might be that there's somebody else that develops on that defensive line, an Isaiah Nichols that has to be doubled and frees up some end. But they've got to find some more production from those guys. Even Jonathan, there are times where he didn't, his first 2 years where he shed a blocker and ball carrier went right by him. He just didn't see him. It just wasn't productive all the time. He didn't get blocked, and he did demand double teams, but he didn't make as many plays as you might want early on. So, but yeah, it seems like they've got some bigger dudes now. They're not going to get shoved around by, 330-pound offensive guards, if they're, all 3 positions. You could double team Jonathan because the 2 ends or whatever you want to call them is like you could single them. So that's where, things might change, is that they're more consistent all the way across the front.
All right, now let's switch over to baseball.
And might have enough guys to play a 4-man front, too. That, so, yeah.
They haven't even announced what that'll look like next season. I guess we'll have we'll wait until media days, and I'm sure Coach Pittman will be asked about that. So you mentioned about starting pitchers in baseball and how that can kind of translate, in that conversation. And the conversation on starting pitching for Arkansas baseball right now is all centered around Patrick Wicklander is as reliable as it gets, it seems, and economical as it gets. Peyton Paulette is still hot and cold. I think he gave up some piddly hits against LSU. Didn't really have that put-away pitch that he usually has. And the third starter is the one that's up in the air. And it all seems like you're saying, 5 innings. You'd be happy with 2 innings right now from a starting pitcher on a Sunday. Even 3 innings would feel like going for a complete game.
Yeah, I think we may see Jackson Wiggins there. And it might be that it's 2 innings starting out or whatever. And but he's got to go to the next level just in the way he pitches and rely on those off-speed pitches, a curveball to go with that changeup's pretty good. But he needs one more pitch but I always felt like he was going to be a starting pitcher. Mm-hmm. That he had just the stature to go out there and throw a few innings and learn to be a little finer in his command. That's what you worry about with him is that, okay, he's going to throw 60 pitches and only pitch 3 innings, right? So he's got to get. But reading between the lines yesterday from Swatters and Matt Jones had a really nice piece where he talked to Hobbs and they didn't go right out and say he's the guy on Sunday, but I think that's where it's headed.
I think you're right, and it's one of the things that's also interesting in that article, and you just noticed when you've watched for the last couple of weeks, the reason that Wiggins hasn't pitched is that Kevin Kopps is a throwback closer. In the days when Raleigh Fingers would go 3 innings, or a Hoyt Wilhelm would close a game by throwing 3 or 4 innings, or an Elroy Face would do that. I mean, we're talking guys from the 60s and the 70s. Nobody's really done that on a consistent basis for a long, long time. I know we're talking college baseball here, but I think Wiggins was, he was the setup guy for a bit there for Kopps, and it just shows right now that Kevin does not need a setup man. He's his own setup man, and he does that 2 times a weekend, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think if this is looking back at talking in January with Matt Hobbs and Dave Van Horn, they wondered if Kopps wasn't going to be a starter. That like he could give them 6 or 7 innings because he was so efficient in everything he did last fall. It's like, well, he can throw strikes and he can get us 6 or 7 innings, and Wiggins would be the closer. And I think early on maybe that's where they were headed. And then they realized, well, Wiggins, he can be hit in his command, and he walks a few. You don't want walks in the 8th and 9th inning, though. That's just invitation for disaster. And Kopps just throws strike after strike. I mean, it's silly how few pitches that he has thrown to have that number of strikes. Usually strikeouts are high volume of pitches, but he's not. I mean, he's low volume with strikeouts, which is if you want to just top a few back to the pitcher with him, you can do that. That's about all you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he really has been amazing to watch. It really has, and he's showing no signs of slowing down whatsoever. But I do think you're right about Wiggins. I think he's the guy that's going to get the look on Sunday against Georgia, and hopefully there is a Sunday against Georgia. I'm almost feeling like, and I'm not superstitious about this, Clay, but 4 doubleheaders in 4 weeks. Why not make it 5 in a row? Right? This team seems to thrive on it.
Sunday's not looking great. I mean, I just got to be honest. That's the whole weekend is kind of iffy, though. We get past Friday. Friday might be the best day for a doubleheader because Saturday's not. There's some rain for Saturday, and there's definitely some rain for Sunday. So how hard is it to do 8 hours of baseball, Phil, on the radio? I mean, it's just on these road trips where you're by yourself.
I don't know if I can describe all of that in 45 seconds, so
okay.
Maybe we'll do that in the next segment. We have a brand new sponsor on halftime, Ramos Roofing. Tell them about them.
Ramos Roofing. If you had some issues during the most recent hailstorm that came through, you need some roofing repair. Ramos Roofing is the answer. They're locally owned and operated, and they will fix your roofing problems caused by the recent storm on your home or your commercial building from eastern Oklahoma, the River Valley, and northwest Arkansas. Ramos Roofing will assist with you with your insurance. Also, give them a call, 479-420-9903. That's 479-420-9903. Ramos Roofing guarantees their work. Call Ramos Roofing today for all your roofing problems. More with Clay Henry coming up next.
Clay Henry joining us here for this last segment of hour number one. Got questions for Clay, 877-377-6963. Clay wanted to know the difficulty of doing double headers solo on the road. I'd be more frightened doing an 8-hour sports talk show by myself than a baseball doubleheader. But more than anything, I guess you just have to make sure you got a caffeinated beverage for between games. That usually helps. And to have a bathroom that's close by, well, I have no power over where the stadium's bathrooms are located. I'm very thankful for places like LSU and South Carolina, and I wish Ole Miss's stadium to sink into the pits of hell because of where they put the bathrooms, and there's nowhere for us to go.
So you're with Ole Miss baseball stadium the way I am for Darrell Royal Memorial Stadium in Austin. If it was on fire, you would pour gasoline on it, right? You'd pour gasoline on the Ole Miss stadium when it was on fire. I guess
so. Did you ever feel now, Clay? I know how you feel about Texas, so don't get me wrong about this. And I've kind of fought this in my head a little bit about the way that we all feel about Ole Miss. And even last night, Mike Irwin was making fun of Ole Miss baseball on Twitter as they almost blew a game against Arkansas State, the same Arkansas State team the Hogs play next week. When I go there, Clay, when I go to Ole Miss, I want to feel kinship with those people because they love college baseball as much as I do. But I really can't get with the kinship with them. Did you ever feel that way about Texas? Did you ever sit there and think, these people love college football as much as I do? I should like them, but I can't. That'll never happen.
Well, no. And I guess it just was the way I was brought up. And I can't really describe it, but it's when you go there. When I'm talking about University of Texas, there is such an arrogance. They whatever sport they dominated, and they were so good that the winning was just it was just expected, and they also expected that you were inferior. And it was the attitude, well, you're from Arkansas, and y'all are just a bunch of hillbillies, and I'm surprised you're wearing shoes. That's the kind of stuff you'd hear from them. And I was like, yeah, but we're not even sure we were going to accept y'all in the union when you wanted to come in. It's like that's the kind of conversations that you had, and you realize these are just arrogant bastards. And I apologize.
That's not feeling kinship. That's screw these people.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I wonder if Ty probably feels the same way about A&M because, it's all the same with that. Clay Henry joining us here on halftime. And like Phil said, you got any questions? We're going to transition over to basketball. So any questions you got, text them in, let us know. Clay, a lot of basketball news with yesterday. David Patrick heading to Oklahoma, and then two guys leaving the program with Akol Mawan and Baby Yola leaving the program. Prior to getting you on, we were having a conversation just like, what does Coach Musselman do? Because you've got 3 open roster spots. I pitched the idea of go get maybe a backup point guard or 2 bigs, and then I pretty much talked myself out of it because, Clay, when you look at the roster right now, with the 10 guys there, that could be your lineup or the rotation for this team. So what do you think Musselman will do? Do you go out and get these 3 roster spots filled or fill it with walk-ons? What would you do?
Well, so what I think he always does is what he's going to do, and that is assess availability. Number one, can they play defense? What is their offensive capabilities? Can they shoot? And I'm going in order. And position doesn't matter.
Right.
It's positionless basketball. If you can play defense, then you can play for him because that's what matters. And it's the same thing, with Eddie Sutton. It's the same thing with Nolan Richardson. The positionless basketball. If you needed to put you got to have somebody that can rebound. But if you've got 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" guards, they can rebound. So it becomes a moot point. It's like, okay, I got to have this, and I've got to have that. But if they're positionless, so when you say, well, we need a point guard, well, not really. If they can play basketball, he can design things for them, and he's, you just see him, make adjustments, and it's like, well, these guys are basketball players. We're gonna run these sets, and maybe we didn't practice that, but we're gonna run this set for this guy because he's got the mismatch. And defensively, if they run into a buzzsaw like they did against Auburn last year, well, we're just going to double team and get the ball out of that guy's hands. And it's like, well, that doesn't look orthodox, but it's like, we're going to stop them from doing what they want to do. But it just comes down to, he will assess what's out there, either high school players or in the portal, and he'll find guys that can play defense that are positionless. And that's what you hear him say. He said, these guys are positionless. Well, that's kind of like saying he can do anything. And so we'll figure it out because it won't matter.
Well, he's definitely got the offense coming in with these 3 transfers coming. You bring up defense. Obviously, Devo, we know what Jalen can bring to the table. Clay, and I think me and Phil both agree on this. I am beyond pumped up to see what Kamani Johnson can bring to this ball club. And everything you've seen with him, the quotes he shares on social media, and just his physical presence, I cannot wait to see. I think this offense will come, but Clay, I think you talked about how important it is to play defense with this Eric Musselman system. Kamani Johnson, particularly at the 4 and 5 spot, that's where this team needs it. Kamani Johnson's going to be that guy. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, and the reason why I agree with you is that he has got that it factor, that he is a tough sucker. And you need to be tough to play for Eric Musselman because he is demanding. He's a taskmaster. All the stuff that's fun that we see on social media, that's flash and dash or whatever, but it is real down-to-earth toughness, and I think that's part of what goes on sometimes with his staff. I mean, he pushes those guys hard, and it's how they produce what is just delightful for the fans to watch. What he does, and I've not been to a practice, but I've talked to a lot of people that have, coaches and different personalities and athletic department people, and they're like, whoa, this is something to watch. And it would be a fun day if I could get to watch a practice sometime, because I know I've watched all of it. I watched tons of Eddie and Nolan practices, and I'd like to see one of his too.
A couple more minutes here with you, Clay, before we wrap it up. And then the other part of this conversation we were having was just with the coming in and coming out of these different coaches. Donnie in Fayetteville brings up a text and kind of brings up the point that I was wanting to ask. He was asking, do you believe that the number of coaches leaving has anything to do with Musk being difficult to work for? You can look at this 2 different ways. I kind of look at it more with like how Nick Saban does with coaches, where you come into rehab with him, and then I bring up Steve Sarkisian. Started as an offensive analyst, quickly brought up to an OC, and now is the head coach at Texas. How do you look at this with Eric Musselman and these coaches coming in and coming up? Because this hasn't just happened at Arkansas.
Yeah, I think that, we're just a year and a half or 2 years in, as far as seeing the change. And I think every situation, from trying to look at it, they're all different. There was one that he wanted to go coach his sons. There's another one that, it was, you're going from a number 2 assistant to a number 1, and it was a big jump in salary. And, I don't know exactly what the Patrick situation is. I do know that he's going to be gone a lot this summer. And I don't know if that played into, he's going to coach the Australian national team as assistant coach. And I think that's going to continue. I think he's going to continue when they, have the world championships or whatever, or the Olympics, or, he's going to be with those guys. And whether that, didn't work, or that he wanted to work with his best friend, Porter Moser at OU, I don't know. But I think every situation is different. And I think, you can't just look and say, oh, they didn't like working for Musselman. I just think they're all just different situations. There might be one of them like that. I can't tell you, if there was, but hey, if they don't, then you don't want them. if they don't want to work the 20-hour days, and that's what they're all doing, then that's good riddance, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to match the energy of the head coach, really.
Absolutely.
No question.
That's probably pretty difficult to do because I don't know many people that seem to have.
Well,
at least
I
from an
probably
outsider's perspective,
couldn't.
that kind of energy. Yeah, I don't think I could either.
Well, it'd be, one other thing I thought about, Phil, what's it be like if you had Bubba Carpenter in the booth for 9 hours?
Be honest,
Could you match
Phil.
that for?
Well,
for
I know all you need is one chair. If you got two of us in the booth
That's
for
true.
9 hours, you just need one chair, and it's for me because he's not sitting.
You're not sitting.
That's a fact. All right, Clay, we've hit the end of the hour here. Always appreciate your time.
Thanks,
It's fun
Clay.
talking with you. Have a great
Okay,
week and
enjoy
enjoy
it, guys.
whatever it is,
Thank
whether
y'all.
fishing or golf today.
Yep. Both.
All right, both. Well, exactly. That's what you should be doing on a day like this. The sun is out. It is gorgeous. It is a beautiful day to be out. So what are you listening to this radio show? Oh, it's probably because you're driving. You got the windows down and it's fun.
They're on the way
Meat
to the
hooks.
golf course. Yeah.
Meat hooks are coming up next. Stay with us.